Spring 1943. Germany's best aces. Laughed at America's flying milk bottle, a 7-ton brute they said was too heavy, too slow, too crude to matter. What they missed was that Alexander Kartvel's machine was not built to dance. It was built to survive and to erase. How did a plane mocked across Luftwaffe tents become the weapon that shattered the Tiger myth and their own sense of invincibility in seconds? To understand, you have to see what the Germans never guessed. Alexander Kartveli arrived at Republic Aviation with a lesson burned in from war. He believed speed and beauty meant nothing if you did not come home. He was an immigrant from Georgia, a man who had seen what happened to fragile machines. When the U.S. Army asked for a high-altitude escort that could outlast everything on the battlefield, Kartveli did not reach for elegance. He drew a monster around the most powerful engine he could find, the Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp. The engine alone weighed over 1 ton, with 18 cylinders packed into a short, wide nose. But Kartveli wanted more than speed. He wanted a fighter that could take punishment and still bring its pilot back. To feed the R2800 appetite for power at 30,000 feet, Kartveli's team threaded a maze of turbo supercharger ducts through the fuselage, giant tubes some big enough for a mechanic to crawl through. The result was a deep, broad body that looked nothing like the Spitfire's slim lines or the Messerschmitt's needle nose. The Thunderbolt's empty weight pushed 7 tons, heavier than some bombers. Its landing gear had to fold inward and shrink just to clear the massive 4-blade propeller. Armor plating ringed the cockpit, and self-sealing fuel tanks filled the wings, adding both weight and resilience. Every inch of the Thunderbolt's bulk served a purpose. Where others trimmed ounces for agility, Kartveli built a fortress that could shrug off cannon shells and keep flying. The Germans saw only a lumbering target. Kartveli had built something else entirely, a tank with wings, designed to survive when others fell. 850 caliber machine guns lined each Thunderbolt's wings, capable of hurling nearly 100 heavy rounds per second. Squeeze the trigger, and the air filled with a wall of lead, enough firepower to erase a fighter in a single pass. The ammunition load stretched to 3,400 rounds, letting a pilot keep the guns blazing for half a minute, while most German fighters ran dry after just 8 or 10 seconds. On paper, the Thunderbolt should have been a nightmare for the Luftwaffe. In practice, spring 1943 told a different story. Inexperienced American pilots, fresh from stateside training, tried to match German aces turn for turn. The Thunderbolt's weight and wide wings made it stubborn in a dogfight. Joseph Priller, a decorated ace from Jagdgeschwader 26, watched these early encounters and dismissed the P-47 as an easy target. His squadron's reports described the American fighters as clumsy, unable to keep pace with the nimble FW-190s or climb with the Messerschmitts. Luftwaffe gun cameras showed Thunderbolts flat-footed, spiraling out or breaking apart under cannon fire. Loss records from April and May painted a grim picture. Rookie pilots in the world's heaviest single-engine fighter were outmaneuvered and outgunned by veterans with thousands of hours in combat. The Thunderbolt's guns could shred anything in their path, but only if they could be brought to bear. As the losses mounted, it became clear that brute force alone would not win the air war. The Americans needed to rethink how they fought, or risk turning the Thunderbolt's promise into a costly myth. June 26, 1943. Robert S. Johnson, just 23, flew his P-47 Thunderbolt over occupied France. The sky turned hostile in seconds as 4 Focke-Wulf 190s closed in, cannons flashing. Explosions rocked the cockpit. Shards of plexiglass tore at his face when the canopy shattered. Fuel sprayed the instrument panel, and flames licked the engine cowling. Johnson yanked the handle to bail out, but the frame had twisted under fire. The canopy was fused shut, trapping him inside a burning fortress. The German fighters circled for the kill. One lined up behind and emptied its 20mm cannons at near point-blank range. Shells tore through the fuselage, slammed into armor and chewed holes the size of fists into the wings. The Thunderbolt bucked and rattled, but it held together. Johnson braced for the end, but the engine kept roaring. The controls, stiff with damage, still answered. He clung to his seat, coaxing the battered plane west, away from the coast. A final Focke-Wulf 190 pulled alongside. The German pilot stared through the holes in Johnson's aircraft, then raised a gloved hand in salute. Out of ammunition, he banked away. Johnson limped across the English Channel with the engine coughing and smoke trailing for miles. At Manston Airfield, he managed a landing. Ground crew rushed in disbelief. They counted more than 200 holes in the skin. The Thunderbolt had survived fire, shrapnel, and a direct assault from some of the Luftwaffe's best. For the first time, even the skeptics had to admit this was no ordinary fighter. It was a machine that simply refused to die. Altitude became the Thunderbolt's secret weapon. At 30,000 feet, the turbo supercharger kept the R2800 roaring while German engines gasped for air. American pilots learned to trade turns for gravity, diving from the stratosphere with a speed that no FW-190 or BF-109 could match. In a dive, the P-47 pushed past 550 miles per hour, faster than most fighters could even dream of reaching. The tactic got a name: boom and zoom. Hit from above, unleash a storm of 50 caliber fire, then rocket away before the enemy could react. Mass and momentum did the killing. There was no dancing, no swirling dogfight, just a sudden violent erasure. Gabby Gabreski, who would become America's top Thunderbolt ace, called it the art of erasing. He described the P-47's firepower as wiping planes from the sky. The Germans, once so confident, now heard the scream of a diving Thunderbolt as a warning. They looked up and saw not a clumsy target, but a falling avalanche. On October 8, 1943, the myth of the untouchable German ace was shattered. Hans Philipp, with 206 victories to his name, was flying with JG-1 over Münster. He never saw the Thunderbolt coming. A P-47 from the 56th Fighter Group dropped in from high altitude, fired a short deadly burst, and Philipp's FW-190 exploded in midair. The Luftwaffe lost one of its legends in seconds. Skill and experience no longer guaranteed survival. The air war was tipping, not by the hands of a few, but by a system built for overwhelming force. At Republic's Farmingdale plant, the Thunderbolt didn't just roll off the line, it thundered. Night and day, the factory floor pulsed with the rhythm of rivet guns and the roar of engines being tested. Shifts changed, but the tempo never slowed. Women and men, many new to aviation, learned to build a 7-ton war machine from blueprints and raw metal, their hands guiding thousands of parts into place with practiced speed. Modular jigs let teams work in parallel, wings and fuselages moving down the line in a mechanical ballet. At peak, a finished P-47 left the line every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The workforce swelled with new faces, drawn from across the country and every background, united by the urgency of war. This relentless output meant that for every Thunderbolt lost in combat, another was already on its way to the front, ready to fill the sky. The numbers that followed the Thunderbolt tell a story no individual pilot could. Over the course of the war, P-47s flew 213,000 combat missions, more than any other American fighter. Their guns fired 135 million rounds of ammunition, enough to turn entire columns of steel and rail into twisted wreckage. Thunderbolts are credited with destroying 7,000 enemy aircraft, 9,000 locomotives, and 86,000 rail cars. These are not just tallies, they are the sum of bridges cut, supply lines broken, and armored trains left smoldering on the tracks. Every mission flown, every target hit, chipped away at the Luftwaffe's ability to fight. The math of air war became simple. No matter how many aces Germany trained, they could not outpace the relentless weight of American industry and firepower. The Thunderbolt did not just win dogfights, it erased the myth of German invincibility, one destroyed target at a time. Today, brute force and relentless production still decide outcomes on battlefields and beyond. Engineering that once won wars now shapes everything from security to supply chains. The lesson stands: mock the improbable at your peril. Power, when underestimated, does not just survive, it rewrites the rules. Let me know your thoughts below.